All right, I want to go over with you a exponent problem where the exponents are negative. So what do you do if you have a whole bunch of negative exponents in here? And let me show you how I do these, and then you're going to have to practice these. So these are pretty difficult. So usually what I do is I look at it and I see if there's anything real obvious and easy to do to start with. And I like to do what's inside the outer parentheses first. So I'll do with this negative exponent out here at the end. I like to simplify what's inside first. That way you make it as complicated or as compact and as small as possible before you deal with this exponent outside. So what I would do is I look at this and I say, well, let's see. I can take this x to the negative 6, or I'm sorry, x to the negative 10 here on the bottom and move that to the top. I can take this y to the negative 6 here on the bottom and move it up to the top. And I can take this whole parentheses here on the top and move it to the bottom. So I think right away I would rewrite this like this. So I'm going to have this whole parentheses down on the bottom. So it's going to be negative 2, x to the negative 2, y, and now it's going to be to the positive 3 exponent. So notice you do not change anything inside. So it's still negative in front. It's still a negative exponent. Nothing inside changes. So it's just like if I had, I have this x here and I move to the top, I don't change the x at all. It's x to the negative 10 on the bottom, x to the positive 10 on the top. The parentheses is parentheses to the negative 3 on the top, parentheses to the positive 3 on the bottom. So you do not change anything inside the parentheses. You just move the whole parentheses down just the way it is. Okay, on the bottom, I still have a 2. So this 2 is still on the bottom. That's got its own exponent of 1. It does not go with this x. On the top now I have x to the positive 10 to go with this x to the negative 5 that was already up there. And I have a y to the negative 6 becomes y to the positive 6 up there that goes with that y to the 6 that's already there. So y to the negative 6 on the bottom goes to the top and becomes y to the positive 6. And I think that's everything, right? There's nothing I'm forgetting. So always slow down and look at it real carefully. Make sure you're not forgetting anything. And now I'm going to combine the exponents here. So x to the 10th and x to the negative 10 is going to become x to the 5th. When you're multiplying common bases, you add the exponents. Y to the 6th and y to the 6th is going to become y to the 12th. On the bottom, I'm going to cube everything inside this parentheses now. So I get the 2 outside is still there. That doesn't change. Negative 2 when I cube it becomes negative 8. Negative 2 times negative 2 is positive 4. Times negative 2 is negative 8. So negative 2 cubed is negative 8. X to the negative 2 cubed becomes x to the negative 6. And y to the first cube becomes y to the cubed, or y to the third. Okay? Go real slow. Take your time. Now I'm going to combine some things. Well, we could still put this, we still want to remember it's still raised to the negative 3 power. Now I'm going to take this x to the negative 6 on the bottom here. I'm going to move it to the top. So you got to take your time. You have to do just one step at a time. Don't try to do a whole bunch of steps at once. I'm going to move that up to the top, and that's going to be x to the 6th to go with that x to the 5. Notice it's positive now, so x to the negative 6 on the bottom becomes x to the positive 6 on the top. And then these y to the 12th divided by y to the 3rd is going to give me, when you divide common bases, you subtract the exponent. So 12 take away 3 is going to be 9. So there's 9 y's on the top. Down here, I'm going to combine that 2 and negative 8 to get negative 16. It's still to the negative 3rd power. And now I'm going to combine the 5 and the 6. So I'm going to get x to the 11th, y to the 9th over negative 16, all to the negative 3 power. And now I've made what's inside the parentheses as simple as I can possibly make it. So now I can finally deal with this x to the negative 3 on the outside. And the way you do that is I just say, well, I'm just going to take it and I'm going to make it, instead of negative 3, I want to make it a positive 3. What do I do if I want to change an exponent, the sign of an exponent? I just flip whatever it's the exponent of. So if it's the exponent of a whole parentheses, I turn the whole parentheses upside down. If it's the exponent of just one little parentheses, like up here, I just move that whole parentheses to the bottom and make it positive 3. So you've got to practice and practice and practice this. It's a very, very complicated thing. So now I've got negative 16 on top. Notice this negative in front, it's got nothing to do with an exponent. That is not an exponent. It's just a negative sign. So don't get confused between negative exponents and negative signs in front of numbers. They're totally different things. Negative exponents flip things top and bottom. Negative numbers are just, regular old negative numbers. So now this is x to the 11th on the bottom and y to the 9th on the bottom. So when I made the negative exponent here into a positive exponent here, I just turn this fraction upside down. So it's x to the 11th on the bottom, y to the 9th on the bottom, negative 16 on top. And now I'm going to cube everything in there. So that becomes, and I do this in my calculator, I don't know what 16 cubed is, 4,096. And because it's negative and you cube it, raise it to an odd power, it stays negative. So 4,096 divided by x to the 11th cubed, a power raised to a power, you multiply the exponents. So it'll be x to the 33, and 9 times 3 will be to the 27th. So that whole thing, this big crazy exponent problem up here, has turned into, a lot simpler exponent down at the bottom. So it took us 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 steps to do that. And that's typical. You have to go really slowly. You got to take lots of steps. If you skip steps, you'll mess everything up. So go real slow and practice, practice, practice.